A Pokemon Draft League is where individuals, called coaches, take turns drafting teams of unique Pokemon and battling each other weekly until one coach is crowned the champion. I have not joined a draft league since 2020. But with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet's recent update, allowing us to change the timer for friendly competitions, it felt like a good time to jump back into it. My placement was 6th in the draft overall, which isn't terrible, but it means that a lot of great Pokemon were gonna go. And because this draft league allowed Pokemon like Chien-Pao, Iron Bundle, and Chi-Yu, I had to really hope that something good was still there by the time it came to my turn. Funnily enough, I could have actually picked up Chien-Pao or Chi-Yu, but I opted for another banned Pokemon in Smogon Tears. My first pick was Palafin, which is almost slacking base stat total wise, except it doesn't have the terrible Truant ability, and I could easily work with Zero to Hero. With its strong priority in Jet Punch and very flexible stats, I thought it'd be really easy to work with in draft. It's also my favorite shiny in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and I happened to catch one in the game when it first dropped, so I want to use it. I was sniped on my next pick. Originally I wanted Iron Treads, because of its ground and steel typing, the ability to rapid spin, use a booster energy, has an incredible move pool, and I really love Donphan and all forms of it. But John Jr., the person who went right before me, picked it up. So I got Gholdengo. Obviously an incredible steel type in both VGC and singles, a rapid spin blocker, an amazing move pool, but I wasn't satisfied. So I marched right over to John Jr., looked him dead in the eye and said, "Hey man, you wanna do a trade? So I can get Iron Treads and you get Gholdengo?" And because he was planning on picking up Glimmora that turn, and Glimmora plus Gholdengo is an incredible combo, he said yes. So Iron Treads was on my team. I didn't mention this before, but each Pokemon's value was determined by a point system. Stronger Pokemon were worth higher points, weaker Pokemon were worth less points. And we had 120 points to use total. So for my next pick, I saw a Pokemon at 12 points that I thought was worth way more. And just for reference, Gholdengo was worth 14 points and Iron Treads was worth 16. So for 12 points, I got Espathra, the very honest Speed Boost Bird. Espathra is my guilty pleasure of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. When I have free time and I'm doing nothing, I'll hop on Pokemon Showdown Uber's ladder and load up a team of hyper offense and just try and sweep my opponent with Espathra. I don't even think, I just do it. Does that make me a bad person? Yes. My fourth Pokemon was Salamence, but this was only a placeholder. Mephisto had gotten Meowscarada and he had planned to trade with me the whole time. So I got Salamence for him, that way it wasn't picked up. And we swapped. Meowscarada gave me a very fast speed tier, which is important in draft if you want to force your opponents to go with speed boosting natures. The slower your team is, the easier it is for your opponent to run modest and adamant natures, because they don't have to cover higher speed tiers. Meowscarada gave me speed and more. I now had access to spikes and toxic spikes, a second knockoff user, a second priority user, U-turn to match my flip turn from Palafin, and a move that ignored both screens and setup from my opponent in Flower Trick. And last but certainly not least, a Ghost Resist and a Psychic Immunity. I had been planning my draft with MV Mephisto and my friend Tone, and I had originally planned on picking up a lower tier fairy type like Dashbun in order to deal with Pokemon like Chi-Yu and give me wish support for the team. But I noticed that a different fairy was available, and honestly, a much better fairy. Sylveon the Evolution was my next pick. It's incredible with its wish support and strong hyper voices boosted by Pixelate. I now had an immunity to Dragon and also one of the better special walls in the game. They may have nerfed Sylveon in Scarlet and Violet by getting rid of Heal Bell, but that doesn't matter because I can still click Hyper Beam. I wanted Arcanine next for Intimidate, good priority, Will-O-Wisp, Morning Sun and Recovery, and just overall a very good fire type. The plan was to get Arcanine plus Hariyama to deal with the likes of Chi-Yu as well as Chien-Pao. Unfortunately, Arcanine got sniped, so we decided to fuse Arcanine and Hariyama and ended up with Tauros Paldea Blaze, aka Fire Tauros. It had a higher speed tier and access to bulk up so it could boost its stats at the cost of less special defense, but it still was a Chien-Pao answer, and it gave me a nice defensive backbone with Sylveon, especially because most of my team was very offensive. In Draft League, you should always get a poison type, especially a grounded poison type. Not a ground poison type, but a poison type that is touching the ground. This is because you never want your team to lose to toxic spikes. So I opted for Dragalge. Being dragon and poison, you have a ton of resistances. And those adaptability sludge bombs and Draco Meteors really hurt. It gave me a second toxic spiker and also a dragon type that can beat most fairies. It also completed my Dragon Steel Fairy core, and most importantly, absorbed Toxic Spikes, that way my team does not get 6-0 by Toxapex or anything of the like. Look at my team. Now look at the move Earthquake. Now look back at my team. They're all dead. My team had a huge Earthquake weakness. And even though there's only one Great Tusk out there, and I have Iron Treads, every single team I fight, every single week, will have a ground type. And I'm not going to have great switch-ins. Meowscarada might be able to live in Earthquake, but it does not have good defenses to be able to switch into multiple. And if I'm fighting something like Great Tusk, the combination of Earthquake and Close Combat straight up shreds me, especially if it has a Rapid Spin boost to outspeed my entire team. So I picked up Mismagius. This did a lot for my team. Now I had a Levitate Pokemon, so Earthquake wasn't going to straight up 6-0 me. I also had a Fighting type immunity, so Close Combat wasn't going to straight up 6-0 me. And I also had a spin blocker, so my opponent could not Rapid Spin away my Toxic Spikes or my Stealth Rock. We all know how incredible Ghost types have been since Generation 8 because of the lack of pursuit. And Mismagius is no different. With 105 speed and base special attack, it hits really hard. Unfortunately, they didn't give it Focus Blast like a Pokemon like Gengar or now Haunter, but it does give me some nice things in Memento so a Spothra can set up, and also a second Trick User, as well as Destiny Bond to get rid of a giant threat. Speaking of giant threats, every single person had them, whether it was Dragapult, Iron Bundle, Dragonite, or even Chien-Pao. I couldn't just let people get away with setting up and sweeping me. So my next pick was Ditto. Ditto might not always be the most consistent Pokemon since it's only as good as the Pokemon in front of it, but it does force prep. My opponent might now run something like Substitute instead of a third coverage move when setting up, and this can help my team immensely. It also forces people to think twice about picking KOs and allowing Ditto to come in and do the exact same thing right back. It also can give me everything for my team. You Rapid Spin, I Rapid Spin. You Stealth Rock, I Stealth Rock. Oh, that's a nice defog. It's a nice safety blanket, even if I don't bring it. At this point, there are only 2 picks left, and I knew what I wanted a long time ago. Pelipper and Dreadnought were going to be my last 2 picks. Dreadnought giving me a second Stealth Rocker as well as a Swift Swim Pokemon and Shell Smash, and Pelipper giving me an even better switch into Great Tusk, something that gives me Rain for Palafin, can U-turn around, and have strong Hurricanes too, while giving me my own weather to combat the other 3 out there. But of course, I got sniped. And I really did not expect to not get Pelipper. So we changed up the game plan and I got Hawlucha, which resists close combat, resists knockoff, and is immune to Earthquake, provides me with defog and with Mode Breaker can even defog on Golden Go, has the ability to sweep with Unburden, and also has U-turn as well. It's not perfect, but it would have to do. My final pick was supposed to be Dreadnought, as I mentioned earlier, to give me a second Stealth Rocker, that way I don't have to use it on Iron Treads all the time. Of course, that couldn't happen, and my points were very limited at this point, especially if I wanted to have a Terra Captain. To explain, only one of your Pokemon on your team can Terrastalize, and it has to be declared. That Pokemon can Terrastalize to one of its own types and also one other type, not its type. So for example, Chi-Yu can Terrastalize to either Fire or Dark, but you have to pick one and everybody has to know. And you can also pick something like Fairy, so Chi-Yu only has 2 choices, Dark or Fairy. This is to make prep easier. Personally, I'd be okay with anybody being able to Terrastalize at any time, just because I play OU and that's how it is. But I understand it because we have Pokemon that are banned in OU that just might be too powerful with Terrastalization. And these Pokemon are allowed in draft. So my final pick was Nachistat. Okay, it's Knuckle Stack, but I'm gonna call it Lil Nachi this entire time. It's Baby Garganachi. It has access to Purifying Salt as an ability, and of course the most annoying move in the game, Salt Cure, while also resisting Ghost because of its ability, and giving me a second Stealth Rocker for my team. Once again, it's not perfect, but it'll have to do. Lastly, I had to pick the one Pokemon on my team that can Terrastalize. I decided on a Spothra. So a Spothra for this season will have Psychic and Fighting as its Terrastalizing options. I do have the ability to change Terra Captains as long as I give up a free agency trade, but we'll see if I end up doing that this season. So what do you think about my team overall and my return to Draft League? Let me know down below, and of course, subscribe, as I'll start uploading these battles next week. And we're definitely going to be doing watch togethers like I used to do on Twitch, but this time on YouTube. Oh, and one last thing. We're not the New York Dreepies, we're not the Bronx Bearticks. This time, we're the LA Wakers.